it's okay to release 75% of a product. Like
Right.
that's not okay.
Right.
But like you're saying, they have given it a lot of tender love and care. It's in an excellent place right now. Phantom Liberty, I think, launched way better.
Hmm.
Like that was a tight launch, not really a lot of technical errors introduced with that. Um, and just gaming's such a huge industry now. If you kind of let your game sit in the oven and you just got a small select group of people testing it, trying to make sure it's working, people might forget about it.
Yeah.
The people who kind of did the first year of Cyberpunk, found all the issues, helped them through it, doing the early access of Baldur's Gate, like it does make the game better, I
Hmm.
think, in the long run, but it's different now, right?
Yeah, it is
That's just
absolutely
kind of the
different.
norm.
Absolutely. The we're coming up on our hour, and I'm generally going to kind of keep it locked to an hour. So the question is there any other topics that you'd like to hit before we wrap up? And do you have any shows, anything that you can plug coming up that you're excited about here?
What was your first game? I'm curious.
The first game I ever played,
What got you into the realm of video games?
Super Mario Brothers 2. I went over to my friend Chris's house. I don't remember his full name. I just remember I went over to my friend Chris's house. I was like, I don't know, 6, 7, something around that age. And he had a Nintendo, and he had Super Mario Brothers 2, and it was the coolest thing. You mean we can interact with the TV?
NES?
Yeah, on the NES. And he also had a pool and a pool cleaner. Like these are just like I remember this so distinctly. I can't remember his face. I couldn't tell you his last name. I can't remember his face. But I remember that I was like this. My friend, he was my friend. And we got to go to his house, and that's where I saw Super Mario Brothers 2. So that was the first game I ever saw. And then my parents got me a Nintendo with Super Mario Brothers 1 and Duck Hunt, and I played and played and played. And then obviously just became like an avid gamer, really big into video games. I got Dragon Warrior with my subscription to Nintendo Power as a part of that promotion, and that's where I fell in love with RPGs. But yeah, that was the first thing I ever saw, and it's wild to think because I love Super Mario Brothers 2, and I know that's kind of the odd duck out, but it's been exciting for me to see some of those characters and gameplay elements make their way into modern Mario, like picking up things, throwing things, and all of that. And I was like, yeah, this is great. So that's what got me started. I remember my parents also being really worried because they're like, what's he gonna do for a living? No one's gonna pay him money to play video games. And while I'm not like like the big time streamers who are making 7 figures playing video games, like it is just still wild that I get to share my love of video games with people and make a little money, doing so, basically helping to feed the habit, essentially.
It's incredible to see what it used to be like Justin.tv. Is that what Twitch originally was?
Yeah, Justin.tv. Now it's Twitch. Now they're closing down in Korea. Twitch is leaving Korea.
Really?
Yeah, they said that their costs there are 10 times higher than anywhere else, and they just can't.
Too many mukbang videos or what?
Something, just something with the data, what it costs to have data traffic. And so I was like,
that's crazy. I feel like there's a lot of like Korean VTubers, aren't there?
Yeah, I think so. But I think that's just going to drive them over to YouTube, and maybe YouTube will get better at live streaming because it feels like they're like, yeah, we're going to bring in everything that all the big platforms have. And then it's like, oh, shorts. we got to do the TikTok thing.
TikTok's doing shorts.
We got to do that now. And so they've done that, and that's going to be really great. The on that, what was your first game? Like what was your introduction to video games?
Also Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
That has been my favorite Mario game to date. And then Wonder is right now in that competition. I felt like Wonder really takes that vibe of what Super Mario World was, and it just makes it so much fun. And so I'm really looking forward to spending more time with Wonder because like
Wonder's fun.
Mario World though, like the Star Road, and then you get into the secret levels, and then if you go and beat all the secret levels, it changes the color palette of the game. So all these things to discover, because me and my sister, like one year in college, we were like during the summer, we're like, what if we just like 100% Super Mario World from the start?
And then you realize like how much there is to it.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite things, especially as like a first game ever. I beat it and I'm like, oh, it's done. And my older sister was like, did you find the flutes? And I was like, what?
There's all kinds of secrets.
Let's look for stuff. Yeah,
I think that was Super Mario Bros. 3 though, with the flutes, just like from a reference perspective.
Oh, it might have been Mario Bros. 3 then.
Yeah, 3 was great.
It was like World 1-1. There was a flute that could skip you like
3.
in World 3.
That's 3. Okay. World came after that with the SNES, but 3 was phenomenal because you got the Tanuki suit and then you could just run around. And then essentially to beat the game, it was like in order because like there was no saves, so like you would literally want to get the flute. Otherwise, like I can't imagine because you couldn't save it. So it was like, all right, I made it to World 5.
Playing Mario.
All right, got to get the flutes so that way I can get all the way to the end and, in a reasonable amount of playtime. So, yeah. What's crazy is like they had that movie that came out about that. And they actually, the game was basically announced in the movie and they showed him getting the flute. And that's how they kind of gave and kind of telegraphed that hint. There's like a Whiz Kid or like something like that, where it was a movie. It had Fred Savage and back in the day, and it was like Nintendo's foray. He was traveling to the video game competition, and it was just like it's so interesting. I need to go watch that again.
I'm gonna have to check that out. Yeah,
I need to watch it just for the nostalgia factor. Like, oh, now I'm an adult. That's actually one of the things, and we got to get you back because like I could talk about this all day and. As we build out this podcast, because it's the inaugural episode, the thing I also
you're first.
You are well, like that. I've been trying to like mentally, like I've been talking with like I don't know if you know Josh, but he's got like a studio down in Richardson, and it's like okay, what does that cost? How can we get there? And then it's like okay, well, how do I talk to my wife about like, hey, I'm gonna go drive out to Richardson, and I'll be back in 3 hours. What are you doing? I'm making a comedy podcast. That doesn't make any money,
Not for a while, at least.
Well, and she's like, "Well, how are we going to make up this $1,800 gap in our budget this month?" But the goal is like, I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to be able to sit down in person and get that on film." And so I was talking even with Comedy Arena. I was like, "Hey," and then when you sat down, I was like, "Oh, screw it, let's just do it like this," and.
There's only how many comedians in the area that are dorks?
Well, I don't necessarily even need them to be dorks, but I was like, let me just sit down with my fellow comedians, and we'll talk about like whatever the hell we want to talk about. And like when you said games, I was like, yes, let's talk video games. Like this is great. I would do this at the comedy club all day. Like I get up and do a whole 15 minutes about my weird obsession and passion for video games. But one of the things I've thought of and I've been working my way through just in terms of like playing as an adult, like going back and replaying some of these games that I played as a kid and evaluating it from that how I feel about it pre-playing it, like the memories and the nostalgia that I have. Like I love Final Fantasy IV, right? Back when I played it was Final Fantasy II, but how does it make me feel as an adult? And there was already a couple of moments in that game for me where when I played, there was a line that came from one of the characters, Kane, that actually like I was like, oh man, that moved me because he became a dragoon because he wanted to honor his father. And so as a kid, all right, like I'm just kind of playing the game, but as an adult and a parent, I was like, oh wow, that has like that. I felt that like that line, just a throwaway line that it's not even a part about the story at all. But it's something that I was like, yeah. So I'm looking at trying to replay some of my, games that I grew up that were really significant for me as a kid, and seeing how I feel about them now. So that's been something that's interesting. Have you considered doing anything like that yourself? Being that you're, hungry for single player games.
I think that's a great idea. I'm trying to think. I know there's a lot of games that pissed me off as a kid that were just tough. That I'm sure if I went back now and I'm like, oh, it's you jump at this time, right?
Yeah, exactly.